Since the massive success of The Binding of Isaac back in 2011, the roguelike genre has seen a massive boom in popularity from gamers and developers alike. 2017 has been a big year for the roguelike, with there being more than a fair share of titles, but if there is to be one that stands out from the rest so far this year, it would be Team D13's Monolith. Monolith is a roguelike that combines the level design and gameplay of The Binding of Isaac with the bullet hell action of the shoot 'em up genre. The game released June 7th on Steam for Windows, Linux and Steam OS, and a free expansion titled After the End was released July 18th, adding a whole array of new content to the game. While the game looks and plays a lot like The Binding of Isaac, the fast-paced action of the shoot 'em up gameplay, along with its setting, soundtrack and retro design, give the game an identity of its own, creating what is easily one of the most fun and exciting games this year. You take on the role of a small ship in its journey to a long abandoned facility where it searches for power, wealth and the scattered remains of the past. To achieve this, the little ship must descend into the depths of this abandoned facility, combating against the many dangers that lurk within the darkness. Ghosts, machines both big and small, giant monsters and magical beings all stand between you and your goal. The only question that remains is, can you survive long enough to find what it is that you seek? That is basically the plot for Monolith in its entirety, and it does exactly as it is intended to, and that is to create a setting and reason for the protagonist to be there. Aside from that, the plot takes the backseat while the gameplay is primarily the focus of the game. If you are looking for an in-depth plot, you aren't going to find it here. But if you are looking for a title where gameplay takes the driver's seat, then Monolith is going to provide you with that kind of experience. Anyone who has played The Binding of Isaac will immediately be familiar with the basics of Monolith. You must progress through the game by descending deeper and deeper into the randomly generated facility, one floor at a time. Before you are able to do this, you must find and defeat the boss of that floor. To do this, you must travel from room to room, where you must defeat all enemies within before being able to proceed to the next. While doing so, you will need to defeat the nimbuses on the floor, a form of guardian that places a ward on the entrance to the boss and your access to the next floor. Once all have been defeated on that floor, you can then enter the boss room and combat it. To help you in your mission are a variety of weapons that you can find, including the Vulcan, laser beam, fireball and revolver, just to name a few. Each weapon has a randomly generated keyword attached to it, which can be seen as bonuses given the weapon new abilities such as triple shot, rapid fire and phasing through boundaries. Most of these weapons will have between 2 and 3 keywords, but on rare occasions you can find weapons with more, making them ever more powerful than their common counterparts. Along with the weapons, you also have a variety of bombs at your disposal. To begin with, you will only have the standard bombs, but as you progress you can unlock different variations such as laser bombs and bombs that temporarily disable enemy attacks. The bombs are used as both a means of defense, where you can blow up any enemy fire on screen, and for destroying weak walls to reveal secret areas hidden throughout each floor, where you can find all kinds of different goodies and bonuses to help you on your journey. Every enemy you defeat will drop the bris, which acts as a form of currency. This is used to buy additional power-ups at shops that are scattered throughout the facility. As to how much the bris you receive is determined by the multiplier, which starts at 1.0. For each enemy you defeat, you gain a 0.1 increase to that multiplier, to a maximum of 2.5. Your multiplier decreases by an entire 1 upon getting hit, resulting in you having to build it back up to receive the maximum amount of the bris from enemies. This decrease is lower to 0.5 when you have this special ability where a bomb activates upon being hit, as long as you have more than 2 of them in your inventory. There is a variety of shops that you can find throughout the facility. The first is a standard one that has reasonable prices in accordance to the floor that you are on, and a few items for sale. Then there is a rare shop that appears from time to time with better items, but they have a higher price. There is also a shop that offers you items in exchange for your health points, and a shrine where you can gain some form of bonuses in exchange for hindering you in some other way. On rare occasions there is also a shop where you can gamble rolling the dice to gain an item. The total amount of the bris collected throughout a playthrough is then added to your overall cash amount back in the lobby, which you can use in exchange for unlocking new weapons, keywords, bombs and so on from the cat that appears after the first run. As I previously said, all of this will be very familiar to those who have played The Binding of Isaac, but Monolith does have a few little features of its very own. The first is the ability to teleport directly to any room that you've previously been to using the map. taking out any backtracking you may need to do, keeping the fast pace of the game flowing. Possibly the neatest little detail in the game is that everything, including yourself while underwater, moves at a slower pace, while everything that isn't remains the same. While submerged yourself, the music also slows down in accordance to your own speed. This can be used to help dodge enemy fire, as while underwater it slows everything down, making it easier to avoid shots. Another little feature is when you collect health while already having the maximum, you gain what is called a part. Collect 4 of these parts and you gain an additional hit point to your maximum. While small, it along with the debris multiplier really keeps you focused and aiming to play at your very best in order to make things as easy as possible. The better you play, the tougher you will become for the final fight. The weapons are all really fun to use, especially with the many keyword variations. The bombs add a whole new level of tactics to the game due to their defensive properties, as using them at the right time is vital to your survival. It is a game that combines the best of both the Binding of Isaac and what you'd expect from the shoot 'em up genre. It is tactical, it is frantic, fast-paced combat, and it has massive replayability, with each and every playthrough being completely different from the last. Even now, after well over 50 hours put into the game, I'm still finding new and challenging rooms and playthroughs, and most of all, it is still utmost fun to play despite how long I have played it. Overall, the gameplay to Monolith is nothing short of sheer over-the-top action-packed fun. As far as I'm concerned, from a gameplay standpoint, it is the Binding of Isaac on steroids. Another one of the many highlights of Monolith is the enemies and bosses of the game. The bestiary of the game is a healthy one with a decent variety of enemies, whom are all unique both in appearance and attacks. Even the common enemies, especially those deeper in the facility, can be very dangerous if you're not paying attention. Due to this, the game does feel quite difficult when you first start playing, but the key to survival is learning each of those enemy attack patterns. If you get to grips with their attacks, you will find yourself dodging them left, right and centre, especially if you can get the hang of using the bombs at the right time. As for the Nimbuses, they are more along the lines of mini-bosses. They are tougher and have more unpredictable attack patterns to that of the standard enemies. Both the common enemies and the Nimbuses are really well designed and balanced, meaning they are never too difficult for the point in the game that it is possible for them to spawn in. And while they aren't the ultimate combatants of the game, their design is still intimidating. As for the bosses, they are nothing short of brilliant. The bosses of the first 2 floors are relatively easy with predictable and easy to avoid attacks, but once you start to get deeper into the facility, they really begin to become more complex and terrifying in their design. I like to think of the first few bosses as the calm before the bullet hell storm you will be witnessing as you delve deeper and face off against more fearsome bosses. And just like all other forms of enemies in the game, bosses are all unique both in appearance and their attack styles, making no 2 of them ever feel the same. All the enemies in Monolith are really well designed and balanced, making the game ever more replayable. The design of Monolith takes a very retro approach, reminiscing the days of the old arcade machines. To further give it that feel, its interface is designed exactly like one too, where black borders are present on the left and right sides of the screen. To keep with the retro theme, the game is graphically designed like one from that period of gaming, while also keeping the game extremely pleasing to the eye for a modern audience. A nice little touch to the interface is that when your health begins to get low, the HUD at the top of the screen begins to change colour. Once your health begins to reach a critical level and shows red, you begin to see interference in it, as if the ship is starting to malfunction and it is struggling to keep all its systems online due to how badly damaged it is. It is a very minor thing, but it is this attention to detail that just shows how much love and care has gone into the game. Next to the gameplay, the highlight to Monolith has to be its soundtrack. Much like the entire design of the game, the soundtrack too takes a retro approach to fit in with the retro theme of the game. Every single track fits perfectly where it plays. The more cheerful and light-hearted tracks from earlier in the game to the more serious and darker tones used as you progress deeper to the intense and often adrenaline-filled tracks for the bosses. Each and every track fits perfectly and feels that they have been made solely for the moments that they are present in. There is no doubt that Monolith could stand its ground with the gameplay alone, but with the magnificent soundtrack, it brings the game and every minute of it to a whole new level. Not only is it one of the best soundtracks this year, it could very well be the best soundtrack of a video game 2017. Upon release, Monolith had a nice amount of content for the asking price, but it did leave the player wanting more, and that is exactly what the free expansion After the End gave. Not only does it add in a whole array of new weapons, unlockables and collectibles, but an entire additional floor, new enemies, new modes and new bosses, along with an ultimate endgame fight. The new weapons include the spear, thunderhead, railgun and the drill, all which have their own strengths and weaknesses while keeping the normal keywords along with new ones to unlock. The new floor is only available once you've collected 4 spheres, which are obtained in a number of unique ways. The new floor, which is called the Forbidden, really fits its name, atmosphere, design and its enemies. It takes a much darker tone to that of the rest of the game and really makes you feel like you are somewhere you're not supposed to be. The enemies are tougher and more unpredictable, and the final boss fight is nothing short of spectacular from its design and the amazing work done by the soundtrack composer to make a fitting track for the fight. It is a boss that feels like you truly are facing the ultimate being, where nothing else before it or after will come close to the power you are combating. It is just that intense and masterfully crafted, making it one of the most satisfying in-game bosses in recent memory. Throughout your adventures you will now find ghost enemies wearing hats which you can collect and use to change the appearance of your pet ghost in the lobby. Once you've defeated the final boss, you will gain access to the console, allows you to change the difficulty of the game, which includes a hard mode and other modifiers, all which come with new achievements to unlock. It may not sound like a whole lot on paper, but it gives a game that is already great value for money a whole lot more, and ultimately makes a game that was already brilliant on its own even better. Initially this was going to be simply an indie review, but everything about this game fits into the Indiewatch criteria, right down to the fact that it still remains one of the best hidden gems of this year. Apart from Jed Whittaker of Destructoid, a handful of YouTubers and myself both with this video and while I contributed to GameSkinny, the game has received little to no coverage and is a damn shame as it deserves so much more. At first glance it is easy to assume this is just an Isaac clone with the shoot 'em up genre added into the gameplay, but give the game a chance and you will find it is so much more than that. Its gameplay is intense, fast paced, adrenaline filled, exciting and nothing short of an absolute pleasure to play. Few games have the ability to make me genuinely excited to talk about, and fewer again can keep my attention for 40 plus hours, and this does both. Monolith is a labour of love, and every little detail present in this game shows that, from its gameplay to its design, to the little attentions to details, to the enemies, to that absolutely awesome soundtrack. I haven't had any criticisms when it comes to reviewing this game, and that is simply because there really isn't any. Sure, you could go on about how some of the weapons are more powerful than others to a marginal degree, but that is simply just getting nitpicky for no other reason than the sake of it. What few issues the game has are so minor that everything else about the game simply drowns them to the point of being unnoticeable. It is a game that I would highly recommend to any roguelike or shoot 'em up fan, but for those who are not so keen on bullet hell and fast paced gameplay won't find much to like here. It may not have the ridiculous amount of upgrades and items of that which it inspires from, but it is more than enough content to make its asking price great value. I called Monolith one of the most fun roguelikes this year in my coverage of it on GameSkinny back in June. Since then I've continued to play it on a regular basis and still love it just as much today as I did then, and with that I can say with utmost confidence, Monolith isn't just one of the most fun roguelikes this year, but an indie game of the year contender. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, thank you and have fun.